don't think that we've clearly faced up to this problem and acknowledged it yet, Ed.
Unfortunately, America's strength and their weakness is in many ways the same. We are great optimists. We believe that we can overcome anything.
It's true.
And therefore we can have our cake and eat it. And England has now realized they can't. You're going to have to address these problems. And we're eventually going to have to come to that same thing. Actually, most of Europe, just as England, Germany specifically, is also cutting down their government spending. They realize there's a limit to what the government can do. In America, we have not come to that conclusion. We continue, whenever there's a problem, we more and more, we say, well, no, we don't want bigger government, but we always want the government to solve the problems. And actually now to move into more specific areas is on all levels.
So we're talking about liabilities not just at the federal level, but at the state and local level. We have governments that have large liabilities that need to be confronted in the future.
At this particular moment, I think our rating agencies are saying pretty much that California is probably in worse shape than Greece.
That's quite a statement, isn't it?
That is quite a statement, and actually Pennsylvania is one of the top 5. And Pennsylvania is primarily because, unfortunately, there was a very bad governmental decision made around 10 years ago that drastically, like by 25%, increased what were very generous government pensions. Which
altered the pension. This was a decision made by Governor Ridge as he was leaving office.
That's correct.
Yes.
Why he did this, at the time, of course, we were coming off the euphoric period of the 90s where the market had gone up very strongly, and he believed it was going to go up forever. Pennsylvania has massive unfunded liabilities, specifically to their state employees, and this comes down to our teachers. Right now, actually, we keep saying about the out-of-control health care cost. Well, according to some different information I've seen, over the last 30 years or so, health care costs has gone up 400%. Education costs have gone up 500%.
And you're thinking that's driven by those pensions.
Well, not just a pension. It's our whole thing that we have individual school boards against a giant monster union. There's no contest. They obviously can't win. Right now, and I'm very familiar because we just had a new contract in my area.
In your school district.
In my school district. And because I spoke and so did lots of other people, actually there was a lot of concerned citizens. There was 1,000 people at the meeting. Obviously the school board could have cared less. They already made up their mind. They're going to give it to the union and give them what they want. These are facts. A school teacher, and nobody's going to argue that most teachers don't do a good job. Nobody's going to argue that they're not very important. That's not the point. The point is that because of the way we're structured, the short school year we have, the amount of time you get off every 7th year, a teacher actually works in a normal work week only 55% of the time. The average healthcare employee, which is also a pretty important industry to us and obviously an important job, they work about 86% of the time.
Now, of course, the teachers would respond that they work a great deal at home, and they do lots of work that's not on the clock.
Therefore, I would challenge that because, first of all, I'm assuming the teacher is working 8 hours a day. He's only really required to be at the school 7 hours a day, and the actual amount of teaching it does is probably more in the area of maybe 4 or 5 hours a day. So he does have time to correct papers and plan his lesson plan and do this. It is free time while he's at school, or in that extra hour to get to your 8th hour, which everybody else works an 8-hour day, not a 7. So I'm not saying a real good teacher or super conscientious, but to go from 55% to 86%, I don't think that's 1/3 more time. I don't think the teacher is working 1/3 more time on his own. Plus, it's a pretty nice job, really, in the fact that you can decide when you want to work. Most jobs, you come there, you work from certain hours to certain hours. You don't have this tremendous, if I feel like it, I'll put in extra effort.
You have, the concern stems from your local district's contract.
Yes, well, basically, also doing a little simple research, you have sort of 3 groups of citizens in the state of Pennsylvania, probably, because I don't think our area is that much different. You have the government employees, which continue to get their 3% or plus increase each year. You have private employees, which now at this point, plus increase in their benefits. Private employees are getting at least a 1% or more decrease in their pay. or as assuming they have a job, and their benefits are being cut. Retired employees are flat, they're zero, because Social Security has not been increased for the last 2 years and will not be increased in this following year. So we have this tremendous thing that the people who have to pay most of the bill are actually losing buying power, while the people at the top of the totem pole, and I say the top of the totem pole, the average teacher in our local school area makes $62,000 a year. Now this is, again, working 1/3 less, with $23,000 in benefits. The average employee, because if the average household income in Lebanon County is $48,000.
In the county that you reside.
Where I reside, and I think in the state of Pennsylvania it's not that much different. It might be a little bit higher, but not much. And since there's probably at least 2 wage earners in every household, and I think that's conservative because people work other part-time jobs besides the 2 main breadwinners working, so that means that the teachers are being paid, compared to the average taxpayer, at least twice as high a pay right now, yet they're continuing to get increases and the taxpayer is getting decreases. Again, with that 500% education increase against normal wages in that time frame went up around 200%. This is, of course, it can't continue. This is, again, recognize the problem. Nobody's arguing that good education is important. I noticed there was a early today about we need to start educating at a lower level. That's true. There is a lot of needs, but we've got to balance it. How are we going to pay for them? We have now barred our way into a disaster. We've been spending at all levels of government way beyond, and also promising way beyond our ability to perform.
And much of the task in regard to education does take place at home, and we need to focus on building strong families and addressing the whole notion of effective parenting and dysfunctional families as well. And there's a cycle involved with that. If you come from a dysfunctional family, there tends to perpetuate itself, doesn't it?
Well, basically, let's say the more simple one, if you come from a welfare family, you'll be on welfare yourself. There is definitely, it's very interesting, we're sort of jumping subjects here, but Franklin Roosevelt, which was considered a very liberal president, did not believe in welfare. He believed in workfare. He believed you will provide people with jobs and you will pay them, but you will not get paid to do nothing. Today, we have a government that very strongly believes in welfare, pay for not working. If I would mention, this is sort of moving, but again, what is the solution to our present problem? What Germany has done, which is considered a very socialist country, and I would argue more and more.
In the last 20 seconds.
That they have a program where the government says, keep your employees on and we'll make up the difference in their pay as opposed to laying them off. It keeps the people's skill set, it keeps their work ethic up. Again, the government's paying you to work, not to not work.
That is an interesting program, and that's real effective welfare reform. Thank you, Ed, for another edition of the Arnold Report. We ask all of you, our viewers, if you have questions, to please submit them to Mr. Arnold. And again, we also want to ask if you have any ideas about how to make the state more effective and be able to trim its costs. Send those suggestions along to us as well. And we're going to look at those and share those with you in the future. Thank you again, Mr. Arnold.
Take care.
We'll be back next week with a new edition of Behind the Headlines.